So I almost got scammed. I didn't, but I highly recommend that you listen to what I have to say, as it could save you a lot of grief and perhaps even some money. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. I'm Utkarsh coming to you from Singapore. A non guitar topic, but this channel does delve beyond the world of guitar, and I think this is probably a very important public service announcement. Not that my channel does that, but this is something that I do want to do. Um, we'll begin the story correctly where I want to begin it because I think you need to go to the journey to understand why this is such a serious problem. So, I live in a very nice part of Singapore. I am one of the poorer people living in the area which has a lot of richer people, let's just say that. And surrounding my condo are, and again, I'm not saying poor, I'm not poor, but you know what I'm trying to say, relatively speaking. Surrounding my condo, there are some bungalows which are very nice, and some of them have very, very nice cars in them, and which is astonishing given how expensive cars are in Singapore. So, not very far from my house, there's a bungalow that I saw a few times that had a bunch of very, very nice cars in it, like really nice cars, like a few Rolls Royces, a G63. Apparently, everybody needs to have a G63. Um, the usual supercars. These cars would probably cost 500 to 600 to $1 million in some places. In Singapore, they cost three times as much. So I did the math on it, and there were millions of dollars of cars worth in that bungalow. Um, this was maybe when I first noticed it, maybe a couple, 3 years ago. Recently, about a year or so ago, don't quote me on dates, I was shocked to see that exact bungalow with those cars in the headlines in Singapore. And they said is that they uncovered significant money laundering ring operation where they were depositing their assets in Singapore through property, through luxury cars, luxury vehicles, sorry, luxury watches, whatever, bags, all of that. So an astonishing amount was recovered. I'm just looking up the amount right here. $3 billion in assets were recovered. $3 billion, right? From 9 men and 1 woman, and they all had strange passports. They were all previously Chinese, but they had Cambodian passport or some other passports here and there. So I paid some attention to it. I was always like, you know, you know, low tax countries, whether it's Switzerland, whether it's Singapore, are used as places that some people try to go past the authorities and try and whitewash their money here. It didn't strike me as something particularly unusual. Amounts were high, but it didn't strike me as something unusual. Um, then something else, an acquaintance that I know, I'm not going to get into who and what, but they suddenly got into trouble because they thought they were doing a favor to a friend, or it wasn't really clear to me whether it was a friend or it was a romantic interest, and they were transferring significant amounts of money, like $50,000 from one bank account to another, and getting something for in return. The police got involved. It was a very, very serious thing. But as it turned out, this person was completely unaware of what was going on. This person was frankly a victim. So, but then they were given a stern warning, and luckily they were okay. But they were able to shut down the operation of the transfer of money. Now, why am I saying all of this? Because I'm giving you examples from my personal life, and I'm going to give you an example of something that is probably the biggest story that you have not heard of, which is happening right underneath you, and particularly if you are where most of my audience is from. If you're from a developed country in the US, Western Europe, etc., this is certainly one of the biggest threats that you may be facing, you and I directly. So, scam, money laundering, the scam industry. And I'm going to refer a very excellent podcast. There are a few resources, but I'm just giving one resource it's called Pig's Butchering or something. It's an economist podcast. I'm going to recommend it to you right here. Scam Inc. is the name of the podcast, if I'm not mistaken. Check it out. But I'm going to summarize for you something very interesting that's happened. All right. The long and short of it is that anybody can be scammed and will probably be scammed because the scam industry is beyond what you can imagine. It's beyond your wildest imagination. The story of this begins not now, doesn't begin with the internet getting invented and some people trying to figure out how to fool people and pretending to be Nigerian princes. That's not where the story begins. The story of this begins hundreds of years ago. You see, back in the day, before the modern world, before everything that we know, there were a few civilizations that were very large and that they had very well established criminal networks as they were large civilizations. Uh, China from back in the day had a very big, the equivalent of the Sicilian mafia. China had that on a much bigger and a much grander scale. Now, that mafia operated in many different ways over the years during the 19th century opium wars and all of that. And they continue to operate through the Chinese Communist Party taking over until about the mid 2010s. Because what happened in the mid 2010s is that the current Chinese head of state, Xi Jinping, came to power, and he made it a concerted effort to kick out to root out corruption and to root out as much criminality as possible. And the part of the collateral in that was indeed the Chinese underworld, the Chinese mafia, whatever you want to call them. Now, these folks were doing multiple things involved with helping people doing underworld activities in China, helping people in China get money out of China because China had very strict money controls. But with the advent of Xi Jinping, they were kind of forced to expand beyond China's shores because they were kicked out. What also happened at the same time was this was the emergence of a lot of different crypto, for example, where if you have a way to transfer money in a currency that is not legal tender or rather not regulated by any of the governments. And in general, telecommunications, internet, the whole social media revolution happened. All of this happened concurrently. What happened then is that this Chinese mafia, the former Chinese mafia, now a bigger, much bigger operation, they became, over a period of time, experts at a few things. They became experts at money laundering. They kind of replaced what the Mexican cartel did. And they became experts. In fact, they refined it down to an art on how to scam people, whether it is a love scam where you meet somebody online and they seem to be the perfect person, you send money to them, whether it be somebody searching for job applications. So if you go not very far from where I live, which is I'm in Singapore, then you have Malaysia, then you have Thailand, and then you have Myanmar, which is a broken state right now. There's a civil war going on between a military junta and the rest of the people. There are proper compounds which are bigger than tech parks. These are big office complexes where people are sitting there 24/7, some kidnapped, some out of their own volition, basically scamming people 24/7 with very, very sophisticated techniques. Very sophisticated techniques. You may think that you need to be stupid to be scammed, you need to be whatever to be scammed, but they know exactly how to get you and they keep trying. So in Singapore itself, more than $1 billion was taken in scams, and I believe the number worldwide was more than $1 trillion. More than $1 trillion. That is a crazy number. If scamming was a country, it would be something like the 14th or 15th largest country in the world. Right? It is not small. $1 trillion is much more than, say, the GDP of Argentina, as an example. It's as much as the GDP of Turkey. It's a big business with significant amount of money, because what is happening is that they are targeting people and they're getting huge amounts from people. The example cited from The Economist was a CEO of a bank who actually wired over $40 million, 40. And it wasn't that he was sending $40 million. They're not clear on what, because it's all the details have not been revealed. But some of these schemes aren't that you'll transfer $40 million to a lover from your bank. It's more of, there are some of them, these things are get-rich schemes. There's this new crypto coin or whatever it might be. We need to talk about crypto another time, the whole scam aspect of that, but we'll talk about that separately. The point, if I want to tell you one thing, is they are an industry that is bigger than a lot of the companies that you know. They know exactly how to get you. And nowadays, with everything that's coming, like AI, for example, right? AI can exactly replicate the voice of your loved one. So you can get a call in the middle of the night, your loved one is in trouble. And then you have to send some money to help them get out of trouble. It could happen to anybody. you have to be very careful. An example of a technique that people have recommended is that have a password you've agreed with your loved one in case you get a call. If it's indeed them, they can tell you what the password is. And if it's the scam person, then they cannot tell you. Obviously, don't store the password on the phone. Do it in a conversation away from your phones, away from technology. That's an example. Now, getting to me. So I listened to all of this. I've been following all of this. I saw Scam Inc., as the economists has termed them. I saw them get closer and closer, but I never really considered it as a, in the back of my mind, I'm like, no way I'm going to get scammed. I'm not going to send money to anybody online. There's no love scam that's going to happen here. I'm not looking for love online. I'm not looking for any get rich schemes. I'm good. It can't possibly happen to me. I saw, of course, people, like I mentioned, right? The ill gotten gains not very far from where I am. The associate who almost got involved in all of this. But I thought, I'm completely immune. It's not going to happen to me. Well, maybe a week or so ago, YouTube sent me an email. I got an email from YouTube. It's from YouTube.com. And they said that there are updates to the creator policy, and there was a video shared with me, which when you open it, then there's a man speaking. He says, "Hi from YouTube, blah blah blah," which is very normal because YouTube does this, right? It has a lot of resources and a lot of updates for creators. And they basically said that you need to read through these new terms and conditions. We're changing how monetization works, and if you don't do this, the monetization of your channel will get blocked. Now, me being maybe lazy, busy, whatever it could be, I saw the video and I was like, okay, this is not, because YouTube is not my income, right? It's like pocket money on the side. I was like, okay, sure. I'll look at it when I have the time. So I was a little bit lazy. Then I got a second reminder. Please, you need to check this, all of that. I was like, They said you have 7 days. I was like, okay, I have 7 days. I'm not too fussed about it. And then just yesterday, I thought, okay, let me finally look at it. And then I went and I clicked on the link, which in retrospect, I'll see why it's not a great idea. And it turns out that this creator, this video, this channel has been blocked. I was like, why is the channel being blocked with YouTube? And I was like, no, don't tell me this is, because it's the email is from YouTube. And as it turns out, when I looked it up, apparently this is a new scam that is going around targeting YouTubers, particularly those with large channels. A YouTuber with over 500,000 subscribers almost lost their channel, because what happens is if you follow everything on the video, you end up downloading some sort of horrible malware onto your computer, and all sorts of chaos ensues, including basically siphoning off your earnings potentially. So yeah, that could have just happened to me. It's just that I'm a little bit lazy. I didn't think about it too much. It was very genuine. In fact, when when you look at person, you're like, oh God, I should sort this out. That thing was literally on my to-do list for the last few days, but I was just a little bit busy with other things going on. That's why I didn't do it. So it was just laziness and busyness that stopped me from getting scammed. Right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that techniques on scamming are evolving constantly. Today it's a love scam. Now maybe people wisen up that do not send money to anyone online no matter what, even if they appear to be Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. Maybe they'll come up with something else. They will know exactly what kind of technique can be used at scale. And by the way, the people doing the scamming, a lot of them are victims too, because they are stuck in these call centers. They have targets to achieve. If they don't achieve that, they live in little cells like jails. Sometimes they're tortured. So this is an extremely motivated workforce as well. If imagine you're being tortured unless you scam people out of money. So it's dark and devious and terrible, and unfortunately coming for all of us, particularly those of us who live in developed countries. So we just have to be really, really, really careful and keep an eye out. That's all I'm suggesting. All right, folks, I highly recommend that you check out I'm not an advocate for the Economist magazine as such. I mean, I like them and I dislike them, but this was a good feature, Scam Inc. Do check it out. An important one. All right. And of course, if you don't want to check all of that out, hopefully you've listened to my conversation and hopefully you just know how to be on alert. All right. I'll see you next time.